have we done to deserve this? Enough is enough. Men who are supposed to protect us now use us.
You're just in time for the best part of the program. We are in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
Into the death of Agnes Tirop, Kenya's world record holder and two-time world championship bronze medalist, have begun.
And I'm in Kenya reporting on gender-based violence in athletics, particularly after the death of Rebecca Cheptegei, but also looking at the deaths of athletes like Agnes Tirop and Damaris Mutua. One explanation has been how athletes are particularly susceptible to it, although there's kind of some relatively high rates of gender-based violence in Kenya more generally. How the fact that athletes have more money than lots of the other population means that they're particularly vulnerable to exploitation, whether that's from sexual exploitation, financial exploitation, or even potentially links to doping. And the other, I'd say, main finding I found is it surprised me quite how widespread it was. Obviously we hear about the headline cases like Agnes Tirop, like Rebecca Cheptegei, but having spoken to several athletes, current and former, they all say that they have some experience of exploitation, maybe to a lesser degree, and that they want to see action being taken. So it's good that there's events like this one happening here today with Athletics Kenya to at least try and start the ball rolling. It seems like there's several. One, if you take an immediate short-term one, it's the funding by the government, by police of Athletics Kenya, of safe houses, of better reporting standards for athletes, which it sounds like they've started to do at Athletics Kenya from January this year. But of course, you could argue if someone needs to go to a safe house, that's too late, it's not stopping it, which means that change is needed at sort of root level. So it seems like there's initiatives and seminars to go and explain kind of things like consent, how teach athletes how to manage money so they know if they're being exploited or not. Another problem people say is that when athletes are maybe 15 to 19 and people can see they're talented but they aren't yet earning money, it's at that point that they can get exposed to some people, some athletes have called them vultures, who try and exploit them and exploit their money. And so it's trying to make sure that they are supported through that age so they don't feel a need to become indebted to these people. You remove the opportunities from the people seeking to exploit them, whether that's through running academies, camps, more funding from Athletics Kenya, all of those. Because in the West we have a view of Kenya as this amazing hub of running talent, especially in the women's, right? You take the New York City Marathon at the weekend and Kenyan women are 1, 2, 3 and you see all of that success. People have maybe heard on the edge about some of this gender-based violence. They maybe remember in the back of their mind about Agnes Tirop. I think everyone remembers Rebecca Cheptegei's case this summer, although she competed for Uganda, was raised in Kenya since she was 2. And I think it's something which people are starting to become interested in because they know the shining success, but they aren't necessarily aware of some of the difficulties which lie behind it, some of the cost of that success. In the UK, maybe it's less so gender-based violence, but there's been a lot of cases where female athletes have been exploited. I think there's been a number of reviews, for example, into British cycling, into British gymnastics, which have shown serious cultural problems. I think a particularly high-profile case is in the US and the gymnastics team there, where several of the US teams said that they'd been sexually exploited by coaches. So this, by all means, is a problem in the UK as well. I think what's just surprised me about Kenya is maybe the scale to which some athletes, particularly in running, have reported it. As young as possible, in a way you teach kids at school, but by the time that they become 15, 16 and maybe starting to interact with girls, maybe that's too late, your worldview's been formed. So it's important that in the schools they're taught. I mean, these athletes are people's heroes, right? You have 6, 7 years old saying, I'm Eliud Kipchoge, I'm Faith Kipyegon, etc. Having those sorts of voices speak out and explain some problems is really important. I think there's lots of female champions for this. You have the likes of Tirop's Angels, you have the likes of Jeanette Jepkosgei. I think it's really important also there's more male role models from Kenya who speak out about this, rather than it only being left to the women athletes, because I think still some people will be more likely to listen to the men than the women.
What have we done? What have we done to deserve this? Enough is enough. Men who are supposed to protect us now use us as their daily recipe. Is it a crime to be born female? Why should I live in fear? Why should I be a victim of gender-based violence? Why? Why me?